hear and see the document on the screen.
Okay, well, folks, it is by the clock on my computer, 12 o'clock, and today is April 27, 2020. We're going to start the board meeting for the library board. I want to thank everyone, all the board members that are attending here, either by phone or by video. And I also want to thank the public who is watching as well. The first thing we're going to do is call to order. The regular meeting is now called to order. Angie, can we have a call of the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman.
Present.
Mr. Biederman.
Yep, can you hear me?
Ooh, he's at Central Library now.
We'll go on to Mr. Bigsby.
I'm present.
Dr. Jett.
Here.
Dr. Murtada.
Present.
Ms. Payne.
Who's that?
Ms. Payne.
We're breaking up.
All right,
Yeah.
I was muted. That's me, Pat
Okay,
Payne.
okay.
Okay, Reverend Robinson
Here.
and Salinas.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum.
All right, the chair recognizes a quorum. Before we start the meeting, I want to make sure I get this in the record. In lieu of the extreme emergency facing our city and in keeping with the executive order issued by the governor, the public will not be invited to join physically attend today's meeting, but they can be listen or view us via Zoom on the live stream YouTube link. The first item is item number 4 on the agenda, folks. And it is the minutes from the March 23rd, 2020. Do we have any additions or corrections from our board members as far as the minutes from March 23rd? If you do, just raise your hand and then by all means start speaking at once, okay? This is all new to all of us. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 23rd meeting?
So moved.
Second, Pat Payne.
That was Carla Bertana. So moved.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the board meeting minutes? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, yes. Mr. Biederman.
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby.
Approved.
Dr. Jett.
Approve.
Dr. Murtada.
Approved.
Ms. Payne. Ms. Payne.
All right, I keep forgetting to unmute. Approved.
Okay. Reverend Robinson
Approve.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved. The motion carries. We have the committee reports. This is item number 5, folks. The Finance Committee. Ms. Payne, you are the chair.
EJ, are you available for the report? That's
Jackie, you're muted, Jackie. There you go.
I can walk you through the report. You have item 5A. This is the regular treasurer's report, and I want to compliment the finance staff. EJ and her team have been working at home full-time, but also coming in on a very careful schedule to be able to finish a lot of these things in a timely manner for us, even while they're doing the CAFRs. So they're really focused. This reflects the end of March. And so as you recall, we were closed for 2 weeks in March. So you already begin to see in here some reductions in our revenue from what we might have expected to see. Photocopy and things like that are down, fines are down, things like that. So the impact of our recent decisions are already starting to show up. Let's see, other pages in here. We've got all the detail on the operating budget and that next page, which, let's see, keep going, Joe. Yeah, this detail. This is a look backwards, of course, because this is the end of March. And in a moment, we'll take a look at what we're predicting. This page here, this is that full year snapshot. This is probably a great place to see what has actually happened. Joe, can you just get us back to that a little bit, please? The landscape, yes, that one. That's the sheet I want to look at for just a moment.
Okay.
And here's where you really can begin to see what is happening in the, from the revenue side.
Jackie, you are breaking up a little bit.
For March, you can see a few things are down, public. You also see that we are beginning to adjust this sheet to reflect our projections. And in April and May, you begin to see revenues that are blank. Okay. So we're monitoring everything pretty closely. Now, this is all the operating fund. There's also some reports in here you may recall about overall investments and the construction funds and things like that. Financially, I think everything is under control. We've got good information and we're clearly being pretty sober about predictions. Any questions on this report from anybody?
So when are we going to know the full impact, if we can, or what may?
Well, after we have an action to refer accept the treasurer's report for audit, we'll take a look at the next document that we have in here. Well, no, I guess maybe that's under my part of the report later on. We'll come back, Judge, and we've actually prepared, and it's under my part of the report as opposed to being here in the treasurer's report. We've prepared a prediction.
Okay.
We don't know anything yet about tax distribution. We have some guesses about it, but we have no concrete information about what will happen to tax distributions. We're primarily property taxes, and we expect that they will be slow because the due dates are being extended.
Okay. Do any of the board members have any questions about the treasurer's report?
Just one question. Are we pursuing in this time, which is so unprecedented, additional external funding through grants? I was looking at the line for grants.
Dr. Murtada, I couldn't hear your question. Could you state it again?
Yes, I was asking about grants. I saw the line item there in the proposed budget, but I did not see the grant line. So I was asking about, are we pursuing grants, external funding?
Okay. We are continuing to work with the Library Foundation to seek a couple of grants that we think we can still access. We did receive the library's LSTA grant from the State Library for the computers at Brightwood. And at this point, we have submitted some grants to CICF for the library fund specifically. However, some of the grants we would have asked for other years, we don't even need this year. For example, the grant for the summer reading program from the Library Foundation, since our program will not be delivered in person, but will be primarily virtual, there will be differences on what kind of grant funds we need there. Programs that have been set up for from CICF or the Arts Council, some of those things, we have not felt we were eligible for because they're mostly about, we would mostly be about programming, and those grants are often being offered for agencies that do not have the funds, for example, to pay their staff or something. And we would not be eligible for those given our fund balances. So LSTA is the big one so far that we've continued to submit for, and a little bit from the library fund.
Any additional questions on the treasurer's report? Okay,
Yes, I
go
have
ahead.
a question. I forgot to unmute again. My question is, where in the report would it indicate what non-essential contracts have been eliminated? Or is that it in this report?
Let's go back to an earlier page where the operating fund detail.
Okay.
Let's see. Many of tracks are in the section 3 of the budget. Okay, so let's see, page 4. Okay, page 3 has income, right? Okay, then if we go to page 4. Still on income.
Here we go.
Now, since this only reflects March, contracts in March were stayed because that would have been for work that might have been done in January. So under other services and charges, you see, okay, we have contracts that show up in several areas here. A lot of it is in consulting services.
Right.
Obviously, some of it's in engineering and architectural, but a lot of it is in consulting services. And so that's the area that will begin to go down.
Right.
In the months ahead.
That's the main one I'm interested in seeing go down. Okay. Very good.
Any additional questions from board members on the treasurer's report? Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Who was that? Who was that? I'm sorry.
That was Ray Biederman.
Oh, thank you, Ray.
Is there a
Seconded. Curtis.
Curtis seconded.
Thank you.
Any further
Thank you.
any further discussion on the treasurer's report before we call a vote? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approve.
and Dr. Matata.
Abstain. I haven't had a chance to go over it as carefully as I would like. I know that Pat was asking questions about the contracts, and I wondered whether or not the contracts have been impacted by the differences since we're not in session or we're not fully operating. And I thought we could pursue additional question. I didn't get a chance to put my question in about it.
Okay. I can address that if you want.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. The answer varies depending on which contract we're talking about, but yes, some contracts have been reduced. For example, the contract with Dr. Twyman. He and I have discussed reducing that contract. And in the case of the contracts with the consultants for the strategic planning, we have not issued anything yet because we need to have some conversation about what that will even look like going forward. And Dr. Jett and I have discussed this last week, opportunity to begin that conversation. So nothing has been let there. There were some contracts having to do with producing our CAFR and some of our financial planning. We have kept those contracts in place because we think that we need the advice from those professionals at this time. Let me think about some other contracts. There's money in that contract line for the work with GARE in the city on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. We've left the money there, but no contracts have been signed yet. So we're in a little bit of flux on a few of these matters yet.
I appreciate that, Jackie. That's what I wanted to hear more about, what's being impacted. And
Sure.
I fully agree that, pausing on some and saying we have to wait on others makes great sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. We put the brakes on an awful lot of things until we know more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm really interested in knowing why some were reduced instead of putting a pause on it at this time.
Well, in the case of Dr. Twyman, there's actually some things that we're actively discussing with him and getting his help on. In the case of the strategic planning consultants, we're not ready to move forward, so we would not have initiated anything there yet. It's too early. And we need more discussion. So I think the difference just depends on where we're at. In the case of the financial advisors, if you recall, at our March committee meeting, you had the financial presentation with the long-range financial projections and things. That gentleman we're keeping on contract because right now more than ever, we need his help running numbers and knowing what's happening around the central Indiana area as far as revenue is concerned. So it depends what the contract is working on, or what the consultant would be working on.
So does anyone who has already voted want to change their vote on the approval?
No.
And Dr. Murtada, did you want to still abstain? Or did you want to change
No,
your vote?
I needed that further explanation. I was concerned about the financial pieces, which contracts were going, and Jackie came back and has explained some of it. So I appreciate that. Thank you. I will vote.
To approve, not approve, or approve?
Absolutely.
Roll
All
call.
right, Angie, can we continue with the roll call,
Yes,
please?
yes, yes. Ms. Payne,
Approve.
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved. The motion carries. We'll now go to item B, which is Resolution 16-2020, transfer between classifications and accounts. Is Ms. Young or Angie or Jackie, who's going to handle this one?
Excuse me. As happened in our last get-together, we made an initial transfer of money from the print budget to the electronic budget. As the closure of our buildings has continued, we have seen further increases in the demand for the electronic materials. And at this point, it's our recommendation that we make a second transfer from the print budget to the electronic resources budget. You see in the overview here some statistics about the increase in that usage. We've also had an increase in the number of online library cards that have been applied for, and I don't have that number with me right now, but we believe that this transfer will at least allow more materials to get into the hands of our patrons more quickly. If we were to leave this money in the physical materials budget at this point, I'm apprehensive about our ability to actually get it ordered and processed and out into patrons' hands, given the backlog we already have in collection management services area and the limited amount of staff time that can be put on processing things. This way, the public will benefit from the materials budget, and the demand has definitely been growing.
And Jackie, this will carry us up until what time or what date do you think?
Well, I wish I knew when we were going to reopen. If I thought we were, I think we all assume sometime this summer we will be able to invite people back into our buildings. When that happens, having new materials will be very exciting and a real, I think, joy to our patrons. But until we have a further understanding of when that can happen, I think the money on the e-budget is better spent. So I'm not convinced that there won't be another transfer before the year's over, but assuming we come to a point of reopening our buildings, I would not expect another transfer.
Is there any additional questions from board members?
I don't have a question, but I would compliment this thinking for our community. Jackie's point about the community needing more resources and us making it more available from shifting that budget makes great sense to me. So I commend you in thinking through the demands and how do we shift from material of the types that we have ordered to this kind, which is our e-learning, and more people will appreciate it, I'm sure.
Any other comments or questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I have a comment. I did have a question that I raised in terms of this amount, because there may be some additional costs that we incurred that we hadn't anticipated. And I actually have benefited from using the e-resources myself, which I do anyway, but just wanted to make sure that this isn't going to affect any other costs that we may have in the future, mask, testing, who knows what could come up. And so just to, and Jackie did answer that question. So I just wanted to just let the public know that we are being diligent in looking at, we're not just shifting great amounts of money, because that's no small amount. And to ensure that we will still have funding in place for other types of materials that we may need, especially with regard to the safety and security of our staff. So.
Any additional comments or questions from our board members? Thank you for that, Ms. Chet. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 16, 2020?
So moved.
That was Murtada, Dr. Murtada, first motion. It was seconded by Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Any discussion on the matter?
I want to also commend the library for making sure that there are more online applications for library cards. Kudos.
Amen.
That's right.
Angie, can we have a call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approve.
Dr. Murtada,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Reverend Robinson, you're muted. You're still muted.
Approved.
There you go.
thank you, and Judge Salinas.
Approved. The motion's carried. We'll now go to item C, projections as compared to the budget and close. And Jackie, are you handling that as well?
Yes, please. Okay, can we get this document up for everybody, Joe? This is the one I've referenced a couple of times here this morning. EJ and I have done this a couple of times now. Every 2 weeks or so, we've been renewing our numbers here. And this is the projection from on the 16th of April. And what we've provided for you here is just a reminder of the 2019 budget and how we ended up. And then we've told you what we project at this point in the game for 2020. You can see the 2020 original approved budget, and then the variance column represents what we have said is the adjustment in anything. So we are, if you look at the first page, this is our revenue, and we're suggesting that we believe there will be at least a $3.5 million reduction in revenue for the year. So if you go all the way down here, there's actually a couple of columns where newer information gave us a plus. The insurance reimbursement, for example, we did not expect it, but we got $1 million insurance reimbursement. And so that's a wonderful time for that to have come through in a year in which we're going to see that kind of loss in our property tax revenues. So the net reduction that we believe we'll be facing right now is $3.5 million. Then you move into the expense categories. Not quite so fast, Joe. Okay, so you see salaries, we are predicting and have taken steps to be able to deliver a little over $1 million in full-time and hourly staff reductions in spending. And by the time you add the various taxes and everything else that goes with all of that, the adjustment in the character one of the budget is 1.6, almost $1.7 million. This reflects our decisions not to fill vacancies, to reduce the hours from substitutes. We've had a couple of retirements, or we know of a couple of retirements that are pending. And so all of this information added together is suggesting to us that we can save almost 1.7 million from character one of the budget. This still assumes that we've continued to pay our appointed and our other hourly staff during this closed time period. And we have maintained everyone's benefits and their health insurance. We've also maintained the accruals that employees have as part of the benefit program. So even though employees have been working at home, they have continued to accrue their PTO like they would in a more normal time. Character 2, this is where all of the supply items are. And this is where we would anticipate that we would, in fact, purchase some of the items such as the ones that Dr. Jett mentioned a few moments ago. We are going to see some savings in some areas here, library supplies and office supplies. But at the same time, when it comes to cleaning and sanitation, we did not anticipate any meaningful savings there because we know that there are things we need to purchase for safety and protection. Moving into character 3, there are some lines in here where we think there will be some meaningful savings. If you look at conferences, in-house conference, got some meaningful savings there. We are not having people travel to ALA or to GFOA or to any number of other activities. A few of those items have changed to virtual, however, and there are, on a very selective basis, some conferences that people will still attend virtually. This is very limited, and they're being approved on a piece-by-piece basis.
Jack,
yes.
Can I ask, the virtual conferences, I know I'm going to have to attend a virtual conference, and there are costs incurred even with virtual conferences. So do you expect that to happen with the virtual conferences you just mentioned?
Yes, Pat, I do. For example, where the American Library Association annual conference was canceled and there's nothing in its place. However, the Government Finance Officers Association conference has been converted to a virtual conference, and EJ and Carolyn will in fact have to pay a registration fee to participate virtually. So
Right.
that's why when you look here at the conferences line item, it's not zeroed out,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. And travel, we had already incurred, the first quarter's worth of travel. This is, mileage and things like that. There might be some before the end of the year, but I don't think there's going to be much of anybody going anyplace. In-house conference, we are still providing webinars. Some of the webinars that we're asking staff to look at now during this work at home, learn at home period do have registration fees to them, or we have to purchase the rights to them. So there is still some spending going on there. Let's go on down. Our utilities, we've worked carefully with the facilities department to understand the impact on our facilities. And we do anticipate some small savings in utilities. All of the rates for these had gone up this year. So if it's difficult to make a comparison to last year because of the rate differences, but we are expecting savings from what we had budgeted. Okay. And then you move into a lot of the various repair and maintenance line items. We have made a distinction between repairs and maintenance activities that need to be done, or that in fact can be done much more easily now while we are closed, as opposed to elective repair and maintenance things that we might have budgeted just because we were trying to enhance or improve an area. But we are continuing with some of the escalator repairs, HVAC repairs, those kinds of things. Even though we're not open, it's actually turned out to be a really great time for some of those repairs to be done. Don't anticipate that we will have any particular savings in trash removal. We did have a savings in snow removal just from this last winter, so we'll hope that that holds for the rest of the year. Lawn care and landscaping, they're continuing to do the basic work to take care of our facilities. Security service, we have reduced the amount of security that's provided anywhere, although in several of our buildings we have kept a minimal level of security just to keep the buildings protected. This was done in consultation with the insurance companies. And let's see, what else can I tell you? If you go to events, programming, these numbers you see some pretty significant savings from. We have canceled all of the in-person programming in our buildings through to the fall at a minimum, and started to move programming to virtual. Okay. Then materials contractual. This is where those e-material purchases are. And you can see that we actually added the $300,000 there compared to what the last year's budget was. So now the new budget is the $2,429,000. Under building, move to character 4. We had a couple of building projects that we thought we would do. Let's see, the 192, I'm trying to remember if that is West Perry. Some money, yes, money from this budget that was going to help on the West Perry branch, and that is still we're still planning on that. We had planned to buy some vehicles. We're not going to do that to replace some vehicles. We've canceled that. If you go down to books and materials and on-process paperbacks, we have reduced that books and materials number by the 300,000. I know that it's different from last year's actual, but the budgeted figure is the one we had increased at our last meeting by 300,000. You'll see that go up after your action today. So we have identified to date $3.4 million worth of savings, which would suggest that we would be dipping into our fund balance to the tune of $86,000 at this point in the game. Our fund balance, if you think back to the treasurer's report, is in the vicinity of $22 million. And while that doesn't mean that we are in a position to do anything we want, we've been very, very, very careful about that. We do think that at this point, this 86,000 from fund balance is a manageable amount that we might need to spend. Any of the projections we've made here could still come in lower, and we'll continue to manage them lower as we go along.
Thank you.
Jackie, I have a question. What about housekeeping? Is there going to be, there should be probably an increase
Yes.
in housekeeping services and supplies that they will need to make sure that everything is as sterile as possible?
Absolutely. Let's look to that. The cleaning line, let me see if I can get to it on my other screen so I can tell you where to go. We have been doing quite a bit of deep cleaning in the buildings while we've been closed. And we would anticipate for cleaning services, last year we spent $888,000. We're projecting this year to spend $1,088,000, which we believe would reflect the need for additional cleaning. Now, we may have had a little savings during this close time, and even when we do open, we would anticipate our door counts to be lower, but we would expect that there would be a much more constant need for cleaning staff to be available and helping out. Yes, here, thank you, Joe. You see this line item here. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any additional questions from Jackie with respect to the projections from the board members? Okay, go ahead, Jackie.
I just was going to say, please know that, EJ and I discuss these numbers every 2 weeks based on any invoices that have come in or any requests from anybody to proceed with something. So we're managing it much closer than we might have needed to in a normal time.
Okay. Well, just keep us updated, and we'll look forward to hearing what the report says next month.
Certainly.
All right, let's move on to item number 6, Diversity Policy Human Resources Committee. Reverend Robinson, you're the chair.
Thank you, Judge. We appreciate it. Today on the agenda, we only have one item that we need to look at as a board. That's Resolution 17-2020. And it deals with the confirmation of continued emergency hours planned for continued staff compensation and changes after stay-at-home order is lifted. I think we've already discussed this in a previous board meeting, but this is now coming back up again because I think it will expire next month. So I'm not exactly sure who's going to help me discuss this. Anybody, Judge Jackie, or like to weigh in?
Yes, it's my understanding. Jackie, how long does this go for? This goes until when?
Me.
May 18th?
Well, right now, the only thing we know for sure is that there are orders out there from the governor and the mayor that take us to, I believe, May 3rd. Is that correct, Robert?
Yes,
May
3rd.
May 1st, but May 3rd is a Sunday. And so the proposed closure period for the library in this resolution is through Sunday, May 3rd. So a week from now.
My concern is obviously there's going to be an extension, I believe. There's already an extension for various agencies like the courts, which I'm aware of, until May 18th. So even though I am fully in support of this, this resolution, I do believe we're going to have to address this again for an extension
Yes.
before the next board meeting. So,
Yes.
so my thing is this, and we approved a resolution like this back in March, and I told everybody back in March that I believe then I thought it wasn't going to be the end of it, and that I would, or as far as the extensions, and that I would keep the board abreast of any additional changes or needs, and I think I have. I know that we've had robust discussion via email on this, and I appreciate and understand everyone's point of view. But we need to have a plan in place going forward, and it is my intent to keep every board member abreast and to get approval from the board prior to taking any action, but we need to have in place the mechanism in case that's not available. But I said I would keep you guys informed last March, and I believe I have. So I'm asking this measure be approved, but I understand that there's some discussion from some board members as well.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Judge. Is anybody else from the board like to have brief comments?
Yeah. This is Pat.
Thanks,
I
Pat.
just don't, thank you. Thank you, TD. May 3rd concerns me in terms, I think it should go till June 1st. And I'm looking also at what's happening with the schools also. So I just don't think May 3rd will.
Can I clarify?
I'm looking at page 3.
Jackie, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm sorry. This document does not say anything about opening on May 3rd. Please understand that.
Closure through May.
It authorizes closure through May 3rd.
It affirms that the only thing we did so far was to close to be consistent with the mayor's order. That this is a confirming resolution. Right now, we don't know when we would reopen.
Okay.
We have no idea when we will reopen.
Okay. Now, thank you for that.
A confirming resolution to reflect the actions we've taken so far.
Okay. I have one other question then. This is on page 4 where it talks about wait a minute, let me get this. Oh, I think it's the non-exempt being paid 2 times their regular pay. Everybody with me on that? For hours worked during the initial closure period.
I don't see where you.
That's what they used to be paid at first.
Right. Okay. But now they're being paid what?
As of May 3rd, they would continue to be paid 1.5 times.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't a drop, that they would be being paid less. Help me understand that.
Pat, it was a drop. In the very beginning, we had a premium pay that was double time.
Okay, right.
Okay, but then we dropped back to a level of premium pay that is consistent with our current personnel policy, which is time and a half. So people who were being required to come in, non-exempt employees who were being required to come in, switched to being paid consistent with our personnel policy, which is time and a half. So they're still getting a premium,
Okay,
but the double time was above and beyond what our policy required.
right. All right.
Great. Thank you, Pat, for the question. And Jackie, thank you for the response. Is there anyone else from the board that would like to?
Yes. Yeah, this is Dr. Jett. I do have a few things to raise, which I have raised via email. And I think that it would be best in the future to have an ongoing conversation regarding what's going to happen or different news that's coming out in terms of the pandemic, because now we're caught in this moment where we're making a decision and we don't have all of the information. What I want to address specifically is in part 2, where it, if you can bring it down, where it says that this decision is made with the CEO in consultation with the library board president. And I understand that there is this intent or an assumption that there'll be a conversation, that there'll be information provided to the full board, but we cannot go on that. It needs to be reflected in the actual public document that all of the board will be a part of the decision-making process. And I understand the resolution previously did not reflect that. I actually did raise the issue that everyone should be part of the decision. And now when I looked back on the in public trust document, it specifically on page 61 says the following: under section IC 36-12-2-23A, it says, first of all, the board president must be understood to have no power beyond that of any other board member unless the full board has granted that power to the president. For example, the board may delegate specific powers to the board president, such as managing board meetings, speaking to the public on behalf of the board, or signing contracts on behalf of the board. Any power exercised by the board president must first be granted by the full board in policy or in commonly accepted and understood practice of the board. In other words, the board president does not speak for the board unless the full board has formally or informally delegated that privilege to the president. So full board, as far as I understand it, means everyone has granted that, and I don't. I think that, and I understand the expediency needed for any types of decisions, especially with regard to closures or openings or whatever process we need to take going forward needs to happen. But everyone should be consulted before, and that should be reflected in the record before the decision actually comes down. We all represent different, at least 3 different appointing bodies. And so that needs to be understood, that we are being responsive to our appointing authorities and should be indicated formally in any resolution. So while there can be conversation between the CEO and the board president must then, it should be indicated, has to consult with the rest of the board, and then the board has to be in agreement going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Jett. We appreciate your interpretation and your thoughts you've shared with the board today. Is there anybody else who would like to weigh in? Or?
Yeah, Pastor Robinson, if I may. I'm going to assert again, this is the same motion that we voted on in March. What I had promised the board is to consult with them on every matter that was related to that resolution. I think I have. You either trust that I'll do it or you don't. It's that simple. My concern is, what if a board member is unavailable for whatever reason, and then we're not going to be able to take action, which is what I don't want, because this is an emergent situation, unprecedented, hasn't happened before, isn't going to last forever. This is a temporary measure, And it is my intent to keep the board abreast of what's going on and not move forward without their approval. But we need to make sure that we have a process in place. It's the exact same thing that we approved in March. And I think I've held up to what I said I was going to do back then. And I'm asking the board to vote to approve this measure again. Thank you.
I'm suggesting that that process needs to be reflected in the document in a formal manner.
Yeah, and the challenge.
It's not a matter of trust.
Yeah.
It's a matter
Go right ahead, Rob.
of
Go right ahead, Rob.
And so, the challenge that we're faced with, obviously, is that as a public entity, you're subject to the open door laws. And so either, we've got an upcoming date in a week from now. The board and the CEO don't know at this point in time what the city and the state may do with respect to continuing the current closure status or stay-at-home status of those respective orders. Your options are to grant authority to the CEO to make some further closure decisions or to extend that closure period. And that's what this section is dealing with, to extend that closure period beyond the May 3rd date. The other alternative would be to wait and see what comes out this week and, then convene another board meeting over the weekend, perhaps, to address those matters. So, what you can't do is to plan on any kind of a process whereby somehow the board would be approving an action via, an email or a phone tree type process. So you have to have a publicly noticed meeting. Either you grant the authority to the CEO now, allowing some flexibility in that, knowing that, the board will be reconvening soon. And probably, I think the next board meeting is coming up in the third week of May, according to the current schedule. And may need to come back sooner than that. But so I guess, this authorization is fairly temporary in nature. And the board, by passing this resolution, at least as drafted, would be providing the authorization necessary for the CEO to consult with the president and to proceed forward with the CEO's recommendation on that basis.
I appreciate
earlier
pointing out, Robert. I appreciate it very much. My suggestion in the email correspondence was not to try to have something like a phone tree or just an email confirmation of any sort. The idea of consulting with the rest of the board was critically important. And it's not a matter of trusting Judge Salinas or not. That wasn't the issue. The issue is what procedures we follow. And what I appreciate about what you just said, Robert, we don't know what the city may do. We don't know that. And so my preference is that we still are given that permission to, and that responsibility to be apprised of it. Again, Judge Salinas, it has nothing to do with trusting you or not trusting you. It has everything to do with fulfilling the obligations that have been entrusted to us by the IPS school board and other agencies that we represent. Knowing too that those other agencies, many of them don't always just defer to a board chair in order to give that responsibility.
Listen, it's been great, robust discussion. Terry, earlier, I think I cut you off when I went to Robert. Was there any final comments you want to make before I move forward?
Yeah, and so I just want clarification of what you're suggesting, because this resolution is just to make sure that the doors stay closed until May 3rd, but no other decisions afterwards. Is that what you are suggesting? I'm asking this of Robert. It
authorizes the extension of the closure period through May 3rd. And as written, it authorizes the chief executive officer to make adjustments to or further extensions of that closure period. Based upon what comes out in the state or city stay-at-home or no travel orders.
And so
And
it's
Judge,
that
I
part
believe,
where I suggest that we need to all be consulted. So maybe we do need to have another board meeting. And this is the problem, that we didn't have a joint committee meeting. And so now we're just stuck with just having these one meetings. And that's what I was saying. So yeah, subject to open door law, that's what it's subject to.
okay. And Judge, I think that you were saying earlier that it was our practice, and you also made the comment in our last board meeting that you would keep the board apprised of any decisions that were contrary to what we had decided in our board meeting. I think we've had great, robust discussion, and plus we've had great email discussion. And I would like to make a motion that we proceed with the resolution. We can vote it up or down. Proceed with the resolution as presented.
I'll second that motion.
And then we can decide as a board how we want to proceed.
Angie, it's been motioned and seconded. Angie, can you have a roll call, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. Who did the second?
I did.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Biederman. Mr. Bigsby.
Approved.
Dr. Jett.
No, I do not approve.
Dr. Murtada.
Disapprove.
Ms. Payne.
Pat, you got to unmute.
Pat, you're muted.
No.
Reverend Robinson.
Approved.
And Judge Salinas.
Approved. Motion carries. We'll now go to the Facilities Committee. Dr. Jett. Dr. Jett, is there an update from the committee?
No, I'm waiting to pull up the facilities.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
I mean, I could pull it on my phone, but
I'm actually relying on the screen as well.
That's 7. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you bring it down?
I apologize, but it looks like that on the agenda, I'm not seeing that that's the next.
There's no material.
There are no documents for the Facilities Committee.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
All right. I didn't think I'd seen any, but I didn't have the agenda in front of me. So no report. I do want to recognize that Jackie did make the offer to anyone that would like to tour the Martindale Brightwood Library, which I have agreed to do on Friday. And so I encourage anyone that's available, keeping social distancing, asking all of that.
What time is that again?
Well, you have to
different times, yeah.
Yeah, different times. We're not going at time.
Yeah, you can
I'm going at 10 on Friday. So I think, Jackie, you said probably like a couple of us can go. So if anyone wants to join me 10 a.m. on Friday, that would be great.
10 a.m. on Friday.
Yes.
If you are interested in attending, let me know. We're going to try to phase this because we don't want too many people in the building at once, okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we were asked by someone in the community, and maybe for the sake of the public record, Dr. Jett, I'll say this. The building is continuing work. It's looking beautiful. We are very anxious to be able to open it for the public as soon as the powers that be tell us something like that is allowable. But the construction teams have continued to work. Public construction is an approved activity, and we're very grateful to our contractors and the movers and others who have continued to work over there. It's really coming along.
Thank you.
Anything further, Dr. Jett?
No, nothing further. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the Chief Executive Officer report. Jackie?
Just yes, we do have the Library Foundation update.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Who is that? Who's doing that one?
I am.
Okay.
Judge, T.D. Robinson.
I'm sorry.
No problem. This is, thank you so much. This is for the Indianapolis Public Library Foundation. Every month, the Library Foundation provides an update to the library board. The Library Foundation has been operating remotely since Monday, March 16th. Since then, there have been three priorities that the foundation has been focusing on. One, supporting the library. Two, engaging our supporters. And three, donors. Supporting the library is a vital resource for Indy learning community during the COVID-19 breakout. Our board and staff are in awe of how quickly the library is adapting services to our new reality. The summer reading program is the focus of our fundraising. With children across the city missing so much school, it is more important than ever to encourage reading and lifelong learning. We are grateful to the library, public service, and communications team for finding a way forward. Engaging our supporters. Now it is more important than ever to stay in touch with our donors, sharing the library's good work and thanking them for their support. We continue to request and receive contributions from the foundations, individuals, and companies. We appreciate the library's invitation to send a special message to the Indy Library store volunteers during the National Volunteer Week, April 19th through 25. Last year, the Indy Library store raised $205,000 to help the Library Foundation support library programs. The foundation's board is meeting virtually at this time. Listen, I'd like to also just share with the board that the Library Foundation secured a forgivable payroll protection program loan from the Small Business Association to assist with their operating costs. The last area of priority is donors. The foundation would like to thank 166 donors who have made gifts last month. The following are top corporate and foundation contributors. If you should have an opportunity to thank these donors, the Library Foundation would be grateful. Baker Tilly, Central Indiana Community Foundation, Citizens Energy Group, Indiana Oxygen, Indianapolis Indians, KRM Architect, Lilly Endowment, RJE Business Interiors, Stifel Nicholas and Company, Woodley Ferramanian Portfolio Management, Inc. Judge, that concludes my report and update for the board. And we just want to thank our wonderful foundation for all their hard work and their continued work in supporting our programs.
Thank you so much. I apologize. I'll get my video going in a second. I'm having some issues on this side. We'll move on to the CEO's report. Jackie? Jackie, you're muted.
Jackie, you're muted.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. I couldn't get to my screen. So I have two items for you. One is that several of you have asked about some kind of a summary or description or what we think it might be like when we ever do get back into business, and what would a phased reopening and things begin to be like. We've started to sketch that out for you here in this memo. The current plans for resuming service for our patrons. Of course, we're continuing to give online service. We're taking reference phone calls every day, issuing library cards. But when might we do something more than that? Well, we know for sure that it won't be before May 4th. And we don't even know exactly when after May 4th it will be. That depends a lot on the plans from the city. And we are in conversation with the city and Health and Hospital about all of this. So we're not getting out ahead of anybody. And the city right now is talking about a phased rollout of services. The first phase for us would be something that we are calling curbside library service. This would allow the community to pick up a requested item from the library in a no person contact fashion. If you think about your ability to pick up a restaurant carryout, perhaps where you pull into parking space number 2 and you let them know you're out there in space number 2 and your lunch is on a table with your name on it and you pick it up and put it in your car. It's along the lines of that. We would do this on a very limited fashion. We expect to do it at Central Library because they have the largest collection and they're centrally located, but also at somewhere 2 to 4 branches around the city, depending on our ability to staff. And of course, the support from the city of opening for that kind of service. We would anticipate that this would require a very small number of staff inside the building and a couple of other conditions about it. We won't do it unless we are in a position to ensure that our staff has the appropriate personal protection equipment, which we have some on order, we have others on hand, and we have a staff team busily making face masks even as we speak. So if the city allows it and we've got what we need, we will launch this kind of abbreviated access to the collection around the 11th of May. The actual date will depend, as I said, on consultation with the city. That kind of service would continue for quite some time, perhaps well into June. Again, depends on advice and direction from Health and Hospital and people in the city. Eventually, we would want to be able to invite the public back into our buildings, but as of yet, that is an unknown date. When we do that, we believe that we will be operating at reduced occupancies in order to maintain social distancing. By that time, our buildings will have been modified internally. We will have done the plexiglass that you see at Kroger's. We will have rearranged staff workrooms. We will have signage up in order to advise the public to not even come into our buildings if they are not well. And if you think about what you see again at Kroger's when you walk in the door, we are proposing that there would be a requirement for the public to wear masks. That has been issued in many places, and we think it's prudent. We will also institute a management practice to determine how many people are in the building at any given time, a la Walmart and their door counters. We would also beef up cleaning on things like elevator buttons, computer keyboards, any of that kind, door handles on bathrooms, all of that stuff will be part of this. Patrons will be literally in grab and go mode. Come in, find the things that you're interested in, check them out, and go home. The exception to that, of course, will be access to our computers for the public to do transactional work. We know that this is critically necessary for people who are trying to monitor their unemployment and any other issues where they don't have good access to the internet. That's going to require a distribution of our computer terminals so they're not so close to each other, and aggressive cleaning patterns to make sure that if 2 people are use a computer one right after the other, we have a process in place for protection and safety for the next user. We would also anticipate that we will limit activities such as parking in front of a computer to watch movies all day. We're just not going to be able to do that. We will also eliminate in-house programming because the gathering rules of no group over 10, that kind of thing, we expect will still be in place for a while. We, it'll be phased in, it'll be careful. It'll be a lot
And-
less than what we have known in our lives, but it'll be, I think, the first stage of a very different future for us.
And it's dependent on what the city does as well, and the governor allows, correct?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
have made a commitment to the mayor's office and to council president Bob Osley that we will not get out in front of the city on any of this. There is recognition that our curbside service is certainly not any more aggressive than the ability for people to go to a number of other places around town and have a carryout, whether it be restaurants or liquor stores. So we're not talking about getting anybody into the buildings for quite some time. And then even when we do, which will be when the city says it's appropriate, it'll clearly be quite limited. I
Do we have
can't
any-
be much more accurate than that because we don't know times and dates.
It's an ongoing thing. Any questions from the board with respect to these potentially?
Yes, I have a question. So in curbside pickup, you're merely picking up something. So you're not talking about patrons giving material to the staff, returning anything. You're just talking about them picking up, some books or something. Is that correct?
So we have provisions. We want people to start returning materials. They've had materials for 7 or 8 weeks now, and we're anxious to get them back eventually. We will be opening the drop boxes at some point, and we have established procedures to quarantine materials. The CDC has issued guidelines on the appropriate amount of time that's necessary to quarantine library materials before they're made available. And the staff will be equipped with gloves for handling those, although gloves we know do sometimes give a false sense of security, but we'll work with that. And there's also some tests going on right now over in Columbus, Ohio about the life cycle of the virus on library materials specifically. This is a research project at the Battelle Institute that the Columbus Public Library and the Institute for Library and Museum Services have launched, and we'll be taking guidance from that as well. But we do have procedures in place to quarantine returned materials.
All right, any other?
Does that address your questioning?
Yes, and so just making sure that people will only be dropping off materials in those quarantine areas in the Dropbox. They will not be handing them to staff.
No, our vision for curbside service does not even have a staff person standing out there to smile at you when you drive up. You have a table. We know you're coming. Your materials are placed there for you. And we'll be watching from behind the door to make sure the right person picked them up. But we will do the library cards online. And the reason we want to avoid collecting any fees is we're looking for no person-to-person interaction here at all.
This is Pat. I know that this has probably been well thought out, but I'm still very concerned about the safety of the staff, even with this process. This is where I wanted to say June 1st, not the other part. I am still quite concerned about the safety of the staff and would really like to see this moved to a date further down, and because staff to me is quite concerning, even with this process.
Additional comments or questions?
Just a comment, this is TD. Have we identified a date for implementation?
Our target date right now, pending the agreement from the city, is on or around May 11th. That's 15 days from now. This is a very limited number of staff who will be in the building. In some of these branch situations, we're probably talking about 3 people inside the building at a time. We are very cognizant of the need for the staff to be safe, and we believe we have provisions that can provide that safety.
I think the point that Pat made and Terry made is well made. We just got to put the staff first.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know you are. I'm just.
And no one is being forced
just
to
thinking.
work. If there are any staff who are uncomfortable participating in this level of service, they are not being required to.
Great.
Okay. TD, I'd still like to propose that the date be moved from May 11th to June 1st.
Okay, this is Pat, not under my report, Judge.
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Whoever's report is.
This is a,
Oh, Judge.
My recommendation, this is being done at libraries all around the country. It is viewed as a safe and moderate approach to providing materials to patrons.
Mhm.
I think this is doable.
Do I need to put this in the form of a motion or what?
I think you probably should.
Is that a friendly amendment? Yeah, because.
Well, there's no motion. This was Jackie. This
is my
was
recommendation.
Recommendation. So there's no motion to do it. There's a motion to maybe put the date to June.
Yeah.
Dr. Payne. But
I mean, are we voting on something? I'm not really sure what you're.
I'm not even sure we're voting on it.
Oh, okay. You're just giving us
This is
idea.
a briefing. This is a
Oh,
briefing.
okay. All right. Well, thank you.
So I just strongly encourage that we consider, Jackie, June 1st as opposed to May 11th.
Any additional comments from the board? I have another meeting at 1:30, so I'm hoping to get to this last item quick. Is there item B, resolution regarding the finances and personnel and travel?
That's a confirming resolution to, it's the same thing we do every month, where the board affirms that the bills we've paid and things are in fact authorized. There is no travel included this month.
Is there, I'm sorry, Jack or Dr. Payne?
Do I need to make a motion on the June 1st date?
If you want that to reflect, or I'm not even,
No,
Robert, do
vote
we?
on anything. That was just a recommendation. And so it's not a policy that we're putting in place right now. It's just something that Jackie provided information to us just to consider. But that's not that's a target date, but that's not the actual date that that's going to occur.
I share your concerns, Dr. Payne. I also see that we need to maybe do this eventually.
All right.
Hang on, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion on resolution 18 on the finance and travel.
Second.
Judge,
Yes.
Can you have somebody else make that motion?
Oh,
please?
my apologies.
Thank you.
TD, can you be the first one? Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that was Ray.
Who was, who?
That was
Ray Biederman.
Ray Biederman on the second. All
Thank
right,
you.
it's been first and second to pass resolution 18-2020. Is any further discussion? Angie, I'm sorry. Seeing
Yes.
none. Angie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approved.
Dr. Murtada,
You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, Dr. Matata. Oh, she said she went the thumbs up, I think.
Okay, thank you.
I think that was
All
it.
right. Okay, Ms. Payne,
Approve.
thank you. Reverend Robinson
Approved.
and Judge Salinas,
Approved.
thank you.
All right, motion carried. We do not have any unfinished business, nor do I think we have any new business. Future agenda items is item 12. Do we have? This time it's made available discussion of any items not on the agenda that are of interest to the library board and the opportunity to suggest items to include into the library board agenda. Does anybody have any issues or items for discussion at this point?
No.
All right, I think our next scheduled board meeting is, when is that, May
18th.
May 18th. All right, folks, I appreciate, it's a long hour and 20 minutes. So thank you so much. God bless all of you. Stay safe.